Hello, I'm State Representative Dorothy Pelanda from the 86th House District. Welcome to Ohio in Focus.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Ohio in Focus, a program that brings state government to you. I'm your host, Brad Miller. I'm joined today by State Representative Dorothy Pelanda, who serves the 86th House District, which includes Union and Marion counties. Representative, as always, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
On today's show, we're going to talk about some of the things that have been going on here in the State House, particularly some of the things you've been working on most closely. We'll start with House Bill 50, a piece of legislation that you are sponsoring along with Representative Cheryl Grossman, who represents the southwest area of Franklin County. And it deals with adoption and guardianship laws. The Foster Youth Advocacy Organization, Ohio Fostering Connection, reported that more than 1,000 youth age out of foster care at the age of 18 every year. We'll get to the legislation in a moment. First, can you give us some background on this and particularly define what we're talking about when we say age out?
Age out of foster youth means that when foster children become age 18, all benefits relative to their foster care end. And we believe that studies have shown that many of these children need mentoring, need educational assistance and job training at that age. We've heard tragic stories of foster parents opening the door on their 18th birthday and saying, "You're done, you're out of here." These children have no family, no mentoring, no real support system. And as a result, many of them are in prison. 14% of them have a child at this point in time. And they really have no one to guide them through the next step of life. We've heard in committee on this bill from several foster youth who have aged out. Some are success stories, some are not. But all of them describe the loneliness, the lack of support, and the need for this kind of legislation, which 26 other states have currently.
So obviously a very difficult situation for some of these people at the age of 18. It kind of snowballs then as that continues to go.
The key is that much sooner than 18, we begin having a conversation with foster children to prepare them for the concept that if they agree to enter the mentoring and job training program that's a part of this bill at age 18, that this will be of benefit to them. Nevertheless, this bill and its fiscal analysis is based upon the presumption that at the outset, only 50% of Ohio's foster children who age out will choose to participate in this program. But as the program continues, that by year 3, we hope to have 50 to 75% of those children who age out participate in the program.
So you've touched on the legislation. Are there other details that people should be aware of that this bill takes care of? Well,
with regard to the foster piece, I think that the important thing to note is that we have an appropriation. The goal is that this will be a state-run program. This is not designed to impact local governments with additional costs. And that we believe, based upon studies, based upon other states who have recognized that this is a critical component to their economy, that we need to address this population. I was so pleased in the governor's inaugural address that he identified in his talking points that the ages 16 through 24 are also his focus as well. And these 1,100 youth are seriously a concern to all of us. I believe, as our governor does, that the future of Ohio and its economy are in direct relation to the health of Ohio's families, their financial health, their physical health, and their mental health. And that we, as representative and governor, respectively, need to do everything we can to provide these youth with the tools they need to become successful and to help others become successful. Interestingly, the foster children who have spoken in testimony have all defined their mission as being to help others in the same foster care situation. because it was so very difficult for them at 18 to be on their own.
You've been a family lawyer for more than 30 years, so you've certainly been had some exposure to issues such as these. How has that experience, as well as being an attorney before for a foster child, how has that kind of guided your vision for this legislation?
Well, in my capacity as a family lawyer, I had occasion to be appointed by the court to either represent a family who was in the process of a foster to adopt situation, or I was appointed as the lawyer in a foster care situation for the foster child when the foster family and the foster child were at odds. These are children who, in the foster care program, were not successfully adopted for whatever reason or another. And as a mother of 3 children, I cannot imagine stopping the support system. These kids never had a stable family. We heard stories, and I've experienced as a lawyer, the norm that these foster children live in several homes over the lifetime of their minority, not just one. And the disquiet and the instability that that represents is just profound and has a profound effect on them as adults. And so I think I'm motivated not only professionally but personally as a mother, understanding that with my own children they need mentoring, they need support, and they need guidance long after their 18th birthday.
In February, the Columbus Dispatch published an editorial that was very supportive of House Bill 50. But it also called it a first step, or kind of implied that there are more things after this bill, more things that need to be done. Do you think that's a fair assessment? And if so, what kinds of things need to be tackled in the future?
Well, House Bill 50 also addresses another vulnerable population in Ohio society, and that is the 67,000 individuals, juveniles and adults, who are the subject of a guardianship. And January 2nd, the Columbus Dispatch editorial stated that this should be the #1 priority for our new legislature. Last year, the Columbus Dispatch did a series of articles entitled Unguarded, which exposed the frailties and the voids in Ohio's law with regard to guardianship. My own professional experience led me to know this for a fact. Oftentimes, I was appointed not only as a guardian, but as an attorney for guardians who were appointed and came to my office and said, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. The series of articles, the research, the in-depth research, and the atrocities that this dispatch series of articles pointed out led the Attorney General and myself to create a handbook of best practices, which was modeled after the National Best Practices Manual for Guardians. None had ever existed in Ohio's before. Within the National Handbook for Guardians is also a Bill of Rights, and so we researched those rights as to whether or not they also existed in Ohio, and part of House Bill 50 has created also a Bill of Rights. The legislation with regard to guardianship says this, that a court upon appointing a guardian would require the guardian to sign a receipt in open court acknowledging that they received both a copy of the Bill of Rights and a copy of the Manual of Best Practices created by the Attorney General's office. As the Attorney General acknowledged in the press conference last year, this now establishes a baseline of conduct, which is a first step then to addressing other frailties in the guardianship law, such as how to remove a guardian, which is not addressed in the law really, and also how to punish a guardian for irresponsibility, neglect, and willful misconduct. And so in that regard, the dispatch was saying that House Bill 50 is a first step.
We'll move along to another bill that you're working on, is House Bill 103 with State Representative Stephanie Kunze, who represents the western portion of Franklin County. The bill, and correct me if I'm wrong, it tries to foster or strengthen communication between policymakers and particularly female entrepreneurs in Ohio. Can you share with us some of the details of that bill?
Yes, House Bill 103 will have its first hearing this afternoon in Nan Baker's committee, Economic Workforce and Development. And the purpose of that bill is to recognize that women in Ohio are faced with unique challenges in terms of starting up a business and continuing a business. That we heard from women entrepreneurs and business women across the state who said that navigating the regulatory world and the need for continued mentorship were critical aspects to the continued success of a business, and that they really felt that while there may be some grants and some other programs that are designed in Ohio to help women start a business, the key to success is the mentoring and the building of relationships that we continue afterwards. So that is the thrust, the philosophy, and the purpose behind House Bill 103. The specifics are that it will create a competition in even-numbered years to select a woman entrepreneur that this advisory board will continue to mentor and help promote their entrepreneur idea or inspiration. And that in odd years, this advisory board will meet to create policy designed to help women achieve their business goals.
The women's advocacy group called Women Able, I believe that's how it's pronounced, reported that Ohio is among the top 10 states for women-owned businesses, but that number has lagged in the past decade and a half about. And you've touched on this, but what are some of the barriers and challenges that you think the state needs to address?
Well, again, I think our Lieutenant Governor has begun the process with her Common Sense initiative that businesses owned by people of all walks of life and all persuasions face the same issues with regard to regulatory tie-ups and other barriers to growth or even the initiation of a new business. That's one issue. But the more important piece that we heard from women is that there is a lack of mentoring, a lack of ability to create critical business relationships that are key to the growth and the success of a business. So we hope that this bill will be a start towards seeing more women who successfully engage in entrepreneurship and original businesses.
Kind of ties into the underlying goals of the General Assembly of working on the economy as a whole and therefore help everyone.
Right.
We'll move on to some of your responsibilities this General Assembly. Obviously, you've got a full plate, as we just discussed. At the beginning of each General Assembly, the Speaker of the House appoints members to committees. We now have a new Speaker, Cliff Rosenberger, replacing Speaker Bill Batchelder, who you also served under. So at the beginning of this year, he appointed you to a handful of committees: Commerce and Labor, Government Accountability and Oversight, and Judiciary. Can you tell us kind of how that committee process has been going and some of the issues that you feel will be addressed?
Sure. Well, at this point, the House's focus, of course, is on the governor's proposed budget. And we have, by Ohio's Constitution, until July 1st for the governor to sign that new budget into law. So this is a very busy time for the House Finance Committee to dissect that bill, to listen to the hundreds of witnesses that are coming in to testify as to concerns or support they have for those proposals. In the meantime, our 19 standing committees continue to meet and to hear legislation that's been introduced by various legislators, including myself. Judiciary is primarily composed of the lawyers in the Ohio House of Representatives, and we typically hear bills that will deal with increased or change in penalties for criminal violations under the law. Commerce and Labor will hear bills that are related to promoting business in Ohio and other issues such as that. I also serve on the Rules Reference Committee, and that is what I call the gatekeeper of the House. And we are the committee that then receives new bills and refers them to one of 19 standing committees. And finally, Government Accountability and Oversight is a newly created committee by the Speaker, and that hears a garden variety of bills. We've heard some bills already concerning open entertainment areas. We anticipate hearing some on gun rights and election law. So it hears a variety of things that the Speaker feels this committee should hear regarding what government oversight should be on these new ventures in Ohio. I'm also pleased to serve in leadership for our Speaker as the Assistant Majority Whip. And in that capacity, My technical goal is to whip a vote or take the temperature of the caucus on a particular bill that we anticipate coming to the floor. In order to do that, it's critical to create meaningful relationships with each and every member of the House. And of course, that takes a long time, from saying hello to going out for a cup of coffee with them, to really sitting down with them, each and every member, and understanding why they're here, what they want to accomplish themselves while they're here, and building a relationship of trust and friendship so that when we discuss those bills, there's a mutual feeling that we can discuss them openly and honestly. That also requires a lot of work on my part to research the bills that I'm going to be whipping so that I can answer the questions they may have about them. So it brings a new challenge, a new interest, and excitement to the job.
So you really, you obviously can't just pay attention to the bills you're working on. You really have to be knowledgeable about all of them.
Right, right.
We sometimes hear from members that we've talked to that if someone back home doesn't know anything else about their state representative, that they can learn a lot based on what committees they serve on, which makes sense because you'd want their backgrounds to tie into that. Certainly looking at judiciary, that makes sense on your end. How do you feel like your background and experiences kind of add to the whole experience here in the House?
I really appreciate the fact that my 31 years as a lawyer enables me to read legislation, to think about the long-term consequences, and also how one bill is intertwined with another area of the law altogether. You know, you can never look at a piece of legislation in isolation. How would this bill impact this other area of the law? And so I think my legal background enables me to think in a wider circle relative to the law. I also think that my job as one of the lawyers in the House is to practice what I call defensive legislation, and to often meet with legislators and to counsel them about various inherent problems that I see in a bill they've either introduced or are thinking about introduced, and that perhaps to discourage them from going down a path that might later be very detrimental, not only to our House body, but to Ohioans as general. So it's not just about producing legislation, it's also about thinking wisely about and perhaps subtracting legislation that is being considered. Legislation that's introduced that I refer to as knee-jerk legislation as a result of something that occurs in an individual's district or as a result of headlines is oftentimes not well thought out and perhaps would be detrimental overall. And so, we always want to caution against that and look to the history of a certain. And I also say that nothing is new under the sun. Virtually every bill that's introduced has had some history to it, has been introduced before somewhere along the line, and it always behooves us and does us well to talk with Legislative Services Commission to understand where this bill has been in the past, what the obstacles were, and whether or not the time is right for us now to consider reintroducing it.
We have a couple minutes left. You're obviously elected to be the voice of your district, the 86th. At the end of each program, we ask our guests to share with their constituents back home in the district how they can best reach you here in the State House.
Well, I am so privileged to represent Union and Marion counties at the State House. I think we have the best district in all of Ohio. It's growing. We have leaders within each county that are passionate about their community and passionate about it moving forward in the right direction, not only for the community, for the state of Ohio. And it's just been a wonderful experience to meet with and to work with those individuals. They can best reach me by telephone at 614-466-8147 or by email at rep86@ohiohouse.gov. I have library hours in Marion and Union County once a month, and those are posted on my website, and they're also posted at each library. Additionally, I am in Marion every Monday. I refer to it as my Marion Mondays so that I keep in touch with my constituents there. And I'm also in Union County for Focus Fridays. And it's really, really interesting and makes me even more proud to be representing the individuals that I hear from. So I look forward to hearing from you and to serving you better each day.
Representative, always a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
And we look forward to seeing you again on the next edition of Ohio in Focus, a program that brings state government to you. Thanks for watching.